Good evening and welcome. I'm so glad so many of you could come tonight for this wonderful presentation. We are thrilled to have the Starfire Singers with us here tonight from Los Altos, California. We've been the benefactors before, or the benefitees, what are we? We have benefited from their performances before, and we're thrilled to be part of their very last tour. I'm sorry it's their last tour, but I appreciate so much that our church was selected to be part of that. This is the 39th year that you've done this? About that. And, I have to say, before I say anything else, our church will not have an in-person service on Sunday because our pastor and his wife are quarantined due to COVID. So I said, yes, I will say that. So let's get it out of the way now. But I'm so glad you're here tonight. With that, I would like to introduce Carol and Dirk Damonte, who will tell us more about their cast. We have storytellers and travelers and fellow travelers and all kinds of folks here who have worked many months, I'm sure, on this. So, Carol, I'm going to turn it over. No, I'm going to turn it over to Dirk.
Thank you. Thank you, Penny. Well, it is great to be back with you here in Roseburg, and we did pick our favorite churches to come to, and this is definitely one of them. This is such a beautiful place, and we're always so grateful for your hospitality and your generosity, and just delighted to be with you. Carol and I wrote this show a little later than normal. We've been working on it for the last few months, and this show is about stories, and it's about storytelling. And the last time we were with you, I believe, was in 2019, and we had no idea we wouldn't be touring again, of course, for the next 3 years because of the pandemic. And at the time, when the pandemic hit, we actually thought maybe we were already done. It was really rough, and I'm sure you all can relate to that. Even this Sunday, you're not going to be in-person worship because of what the pandemic's doing. So we are just grateful that we are back here and that we can be doing this. And this show is here because of these amazing people up here. What we did was, when we were able to get back in person, we stayed connected via Zoom, but that's not quite the same for choirs. And when we were finally able to get back together and we realized that we were going to be able to do this tour, we talked to these singers, and we asked, what are the stories in your lives that you want to tell? What are stories about how you've struggled, how you've experienced pain and grief? Also, how have you experienced joy and hope? And every word you're going to hear tonight in the script comes from their stories. Now, we've mixed them up a little bit, and most of the people telling the stories are actually telling someone else's story, but every story you hear, and there's some tough ones, I'll warn you, there's some tough stories to hear, but every single one of them came from their life experiences. Nothing made up. It all is real. And so we're grateful because we believe that that's what it's about to be part of the Christian community. It's about being storytellers who weave our stories together and then tell the great story of our faith. So we're grateful to have the chance to do that and to be with you tonight. I want to let you know there'll be an offering afterwards, and you'll hear more about what the cause is for that offering. And also, you're our second stop on tour. We were in Reading last night, and we're here. And we're going on to Beaverton on Sunday night and Vancouver, Washington on Monday night, and then Napa, California on Friday night, and back at our home church on Saturday. And I tell you that because all of those shows are streamed. So if you want to watch it again or tell someone else about it, we would love that. Yes? Our home church is, thank you, that's a great question. Our home church is Los Altos, California. We're a little bit north of San Jose and a bit south of San Francisco, kind of in the heart of Silicon Valley. Yeah, thanks for asking. That's a good piece of information. Yeah, and so we traveled up. We left California yesterday and got to Reading, and now we're here. So starfiresingers.com is where you go if you want to follow along and stream further services. But for now, we are just grateful that we can be sharing stories with you, and we are eager to weave our stories into yours and for you to be a part of this. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your hospitality, and we proudly present Weave.
gosh, Tyler, it is so good to see you. It's been so long. I found this last time, and I wasn't sure if it was yours. It's so good to see you. Like, how are you
Michael,
doing?
is this yours? Do you want it back? What if I? Hey, it's great to see you, man. Good to see you, man.
Just the same as I remember. Oh, my good friends, what a joy to see you face to face. How long has it been since we have gathered in this place? It is here we find a safe communion. Here is sacred space.
Any space where two or three are gathered in the name of the ones who share their stories with no doubt or shame is a space we find the strength to share the stories that we claim. As we set our fears aside, we find abundant grace. As we weave this tapestry of story, time, and place, we connect to all of God's creation, all our hearts embrace. Soon the people will arrive here. Soon the people will arrive here. Tender, fragile souls. Each with sacred stories. Each with sacred stories. Each part of the whole. Soon the people will arrive here. Soon the people will arrive here. Tender, fragile souls. Soon the people will arrive here. Tender, fragile stories. Each with sacred stories. Each part of the whole. Soon the people will arrive here. Soon the people will arrive here. Tender, fragile souls. Soon the people will arrive here. Tender, fragile stories. Each with sacred stories. Each part of the whole. I actually had something I wanted to show the both of you. If you just follow me. So you see our community board,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, I was thinking it looks a little plain. We could maybe add something a little bit more artistic, more representative of who we are as a community.
Okay. So the thing, they do it with baskets, right? Over,
baskets?
under. And it's like, it's all,
Okay.
it all comes together.
When we
And
could
it's-
do that with
That could work.
like something else. Yeah.
It's really
I
not
like it.
cute.
I like it.
All are welcome, all invited, come and join us here. In this place where God's persistent love casts out our fear. So just let it go and let God in, we all are welcome here. So just let it go and let God in, we all are welcome here. So just let it go and let God in, we all are welcome here.
It is so great to see you, everyone. We want to welcome you to the Weave Hostel. We hope that you, like us, find this a place of safety, comfort, and trust. Hostels are more than just inexpensive places to stay while you're traveling. Hostels are where people come together, people stopping for rest and respite on their journey. Wherever they're from and wherever they're going, they find a common place to land, even if for a brief amount of time in a hostel. This is a sacred space. What it helps us realize is that even though we have all kinds of different experiences, all kinds of different futures, we do share more than we know. We share this journey through life, and we realize that the more we listen to each other, the more we realize how connected we are.
This hostel is open, welcoming, inclusive, and expansive. That means you are part of it too. What happens here is organic and not in any way static, self-contained, or limited to just us. Our hope and our prayer is that as we share our stories, you are inspired to share yours too, and that you'll feel a deeper connection to us,
to each other, and to God.
In a world and a time that is so focused on what divides us, our time here tonight is about what connects us. The stories, the struggles, the hopes, all of it. Every person we encounter, every single one, carries so many strands of so many different stories. Mostly, we'll never know how they all weave together. But we believe that the more we know, the better our chances of finding connection and understanding.
And so we pause here at the Weave Hostel to take a moment to acknowledge the struggle and the pain, but also to recognize the hope and the promise, and realize that more than anything, we're traveling through life carrying all of it. Fears, anxiety, loss, pain, hope, joy, and celebration with us. The more we share with each other, the lighter the load and the brighter the hope. Welcome.
We carry hope, we carry fears, we carry joy, we carry tears. We carry what life gives and takes away. The past, the now, the what will be. I'll fill these bags that we carry with so much more than we could ever say. The bags on our backs are all filled with the stuff that makes us who we are. Our lifetime repertoire. These bags on our backs carry more than just love. It's the things that left a scar and the guidance from a star. These bags carry hope, carry loss, carry love. These bags carry help that has come from above. These bags that we carry, carry us. These bags that we carry, carry life. The times we felt so all alone, so lost and far away from home, when we weren't sure that we could take much more. And times of joy quite unsurpassed, the times we hoped would last and last. We felt our spirits, souls, and hearts just soar. The bags on our backs are all filled with the stuff that makes us who we are. Our lifetime repertoire. These bags on our backs carry more than
As we just explained to these folks, this is a special place. We are here to pause just for a moment at the Weave Hostel to listen and to share our stories.
Those packs that you carried in with you are filled with stories and experiences and feelings. Some of them are tough. Some of them involve fear and anxiety and loss. Some of them are wonderful. They involve hope and joy and celebration. All of that is a part of what you carried in with you today.
As we share our stories, we'll see how they weave together. Of course, your stories are your stories, but when we listen to each other, we realize that we're not alone. We are all connected in love. How about you three?
Us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on, guys.
Okay.
Yes, come, share your stories, the struggles and the fears. This is a safe place. We're all with you.
You know, I don't know if I actually have like a story to tell. I mean, I guess I have a lot of stories. We all do. But I'm not sure how my story or stories are all that interesting or all that unique.
That's okay. That's really the point. It's not about having some big, huge, heroic story to tell. It's about sharing who we are with each other. Some of our stories are pretty huge. Or should I say some of the stories in all of our lives are pretty huge. Mostly it's the stuff of life, the things that happen every day. When we share our struggles and our hopes and how certain times have made us feel, we connect. I guarantee you that every story we share tonight will resonate with someone. Most likely a lot of someone who hears it.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks for making it a safe space to share. I hope you'll all feel the same way. Well, I hold myself to a really high standard. A lot of my self-worth is wrapped up in grades and stuff, so if I don't do well at something, it really brings me down. When pandemic hit, everything I knew about school and study and the rhythms of life got turned upside down, and for the first time, I actually didn't do very well on some of my tests and missed some assignments. And it just kind of cascaded. The worse I did, the more my self-worth sank, and the more my self-worth sank, the worse I did. I honestly didn't really know who I was anymore. What I learned through all that was I struggle a lot with change. As long as the rhythms and routines stayed the same, I was good. But things happen and things change, and growing up is really hard. There's a lot on the horizon I just can't predict, like college and jobs and stuff like that. I struggle with change in my life, whether it's what I'm doing or whether it's the people that I'm with. Friendships seem to be changing, and I can't control that, and it's really hard, so I overthink it. I really care about the way other people see me, so I tend to overthink things. It's that self-worth thing again. Am I doing this right? Do they like me? I don't know, I guess that's not really a story though, is it?
It is, though. It's the story of how the things going on around you are affecting you inside. And it's an important part of your story. Thank you for sharing it. How about you, Lily?
Well, I have really bad anxiety about a lot of things. I'm not completely sure how or when it all started, but I noticed I felt anxious about a lot of things. From there, it just turned into everything. There were more and more things that caused this deep stress in me. During COVID, it was scary to go out of our house. Not really because of COVID, but because of people. Being around people just made me anxious. The thing about this anxiety is that I don't want to say why I feel anxious because I'm afraid it'll come true if I say it out loud. So I don't, which just compounds the anxiety. And I suppose it's part of it, part of being able to try anything. But I procrastinate a lot. And as anyone who procrastinates can tell you, it doesn't do anything to alleviate the anxiety. It just makes it worse because I have longer to worry about whatever it is I'm putting off. So I put it off more, which just causes more anxiety. It's such a vicious cycle, and I get so overwhelmed.
Well, one of my biggest struggles is feeling small and weak. Not physically, but in terms of the impact I can make. I want to help make things better, be a better friend, do more to heal all the hurt in the world. But when I get the chance, I feel helpless and useless. I became good friends with someone who doesn't live nearby. They're non-binary, and at the time, they didn't feel like they had any support at all from their parents or family around their own mental health and identity and just life. One night, real late, I got an incredibly scary message. They were in trouble, teetering on the edge. So I called them, and I spent the next hour and a half trying to talk them off the ledge. The whole time, all I wanted to do was reach out and grab them. We worked together to calm them down and make a plan to get help, but all I could do was talk, and that wasn't nearly enough. You see, I want to be able to do more. Somehow it seems like this world, with all the violence and the struggle and so much fear. Well, as they say, it takes more than just thoughts and prayers. But it's hard to see how anything we do really makes any difference. You ask yourself, when someone's down, what can you do to help them and not make things worse? A lot of the time, it just feels so hopeless.
knows my name. I'm being held by a fear that calls me shame. Anxious and struggling, I'm feeling so small. Losing the fears that are strangling us all. Fear. Tight. Word. Right. Change. And hope. Friend. But I thought that I tried to hold that go. I'm being held by a God who helps me know that pushing the darkness will make room for light. Healing our brokenness gives us new sight. I need help. 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 Help I love.
Thank you for sharing your stories. I know that you're not alone in those struggles, doubts, or fears. They are real. And a lot of us feel the same things too. Of course, none of us would be here tonight if those struggles and fears had taken over. Obviously, we've found hope that, while not replacing or eliminating those fears, certainly provides a balance and a way to navigate through them. Could you share some of those stories?
The great thing and a source of so much hope and so much joy for me is I know there are places where I don't feel like I need to be more than I am, where I don't need to perform or meet impossibly high expectations, where I can just feel loved for who I am. Church is that place for me. It's a place where there aren't any tests, and I don't have to worry about how fast I rate or what awards I've won. It's just a place where we come together and have deep conversations, and also be silly and laugh a lot without fear of judgment or being treated differently. It's just a place where I can exist and be authentically who I am. And of course, being at church also helps grow my faith and helps me learn about God and God's love and how it's complete and unconditional and unwavering, just the way I am. Sometimes when I'm feeling especially confused or lost or stressed, I'll just start talking out loud to God. Sometimes when I'm driving alone in the car, I'll just start talking out loud. And it's amazing how much joy and peace and comfort that brings me.
I totally agree about being at church. I feel like I belong there. And while I can't say my anxiety totally disappears when I'm there, a lot of the times it does. And even when it doesn't, I know I'm in a safe place with people who I care about and who care about me. I also find peace in music. I love to just listen to it. It calms me. But I especially feel the power of music when we sing together. Singing is where I can express emotions, feel connected, and being able to sing brings me faith. Music has brought me more joy than I ever thought possible. All of it. Listening by myself, singing at the top of my lungs with my friends, or rehearsing with the choir to sing in worship. The anxiety fades, and the fear. And something else happens. God is in the music, and in the singing, and in the connection. And I feel a lot better.
You know, for me, gathering together with others who are positive and believe similar things as me also gives me the chance to do good with others. A lot of that sense of futility and uselessness actually comes from thinking I have to do it all alone. And it turns out that connecting with others who want to make a difference actually helps me make a difference. And yeah, singing is a big part of that. Just coming to choir every week, the people, the community, coming around the piano to sing brings me joy. And also, a sense of purpose. I don't know what it is about being there and being with those friends, but I feel a lot more hopeful about actually making a difference. Maybe because those people make such a difference to me.
You know, all throughout the Bible, God's messengers tell people, do not be afraid, or fear not, or things like that. It's not so much that being afraid is seen as wrong or incorrect, more so that God's love is so much more powerful, even when things seem really tough. In 1 John it says, we have known and have believed the love that God has for us. God is love, and those who remain in love remain in God, and God remains in them. This is how love has been perfected in us. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear expects punishment. The person who is afraid has not been made perfect in love.
I think that means that we're all made perfect in love and that we're connected and that God wants us to know that we are understood and accepted and loved. He's very clear about this. I have a Bible verse that would be perfect. Thank you, Michael. I believe it comes from Matthew. Yes. In Matthew, Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are struggling hard and carrying heavy loads, and I will give you rest. Put on my yoke and learn from me. I'm gentle and humble, and you will find rest for yourselves. My yoke is easy to bear, and my burden is light." That feels like a promise and a presence. There's comfort, there is rest, and God is very real and present with us. Jesus is still saying it to this day. Rest in me. Lay your burdens down. Let me hold you in my arms.
Stuck in dark despair, let me hold you, let me take your hand. I will dry your saddest tears, and I will calm your deepest fears. I will love you, I will understand.
My yoke is easy and my burden is light. My love will be with you throughout the long night. My arms reach out to you and they hold you tight. You are my beloved, you are my delight.
I really thrive on close relationships, on human connection. During quarantine, I felt really lonely. Not more than anyone else I know, but when connection with others can't happen, it's really hard. It wasn't that all of a sudden when we were forced into isolation, I had this new experience of loneliness. In middle school, I didn't have any friends my age, so I spent a lot of time by myself. Then high school happened and I actually made some friends, people to hang out with. Although in the back of my mind, I wondered if they really wanted to be with me. Then COVID came around and I was back to square one. Now that I'm back, I'm kind of haunted by the question, who do I sit with? I don't want to intrude. I had friends, but no one I was gutsy enough to go up to and say, hey, can I sit with you? I'm so insecure unless I get a direct invitation. I'm afraid the answer is going to be no, and then I'm going to get embarrassed and then regret and overthink it a month later for no reason at all. A lot of us do that. We go back 5 years later and say, what could I have said to make the outcome a little bit better?
Relationships matter a lot to me too. My struggle, though, is that for me at least, the relationships I thought I could count on the most have let me down. In a way, it's a lot like you were saying, Alyssa. I thought I was solid with some friends, and it turns out they were acting one way with me and another way behind my back. I trusted them with some pretty personal things, and they told other people. I ended up getting made fun of. It felt horrible. But it's not just that. As awful as that was, it just feels like people let me down. It feels like they've changed, but maybe it's me. I don't know. So, how do you restore trust when trust has been betrayed? And how can I trust again to share deep things when that hasn't worked out so well in the past? I don't feel like I can authentically be myself with most of the people I hang out with. I feel like if I am my authentic self and they push me away and turn other people against me, it'll be terrible. I mean, I do have friends, though, that I can count on, that have my back and I have theirs. But I'm leaving for college soon, and they're either staying or going somewhere else. I just don't know if I'll find those types of friends again.
I get betrayal. I get relationships becoming needy and insecure and even destructive. While I'm in a really good place now, it hasn't always been that way. A while back, I found myself in a relationship that was manipulative, abusive, and toxic. The details don't matter. What matters is that for a while, it consumed me, robbed me of my self-worth, my values, and my stability. I was controlled not just by someone I thought I knew and thought I loved, but also my own feelings of shame and doubt and insecurity. It's a really scary place to be, but it's important to recognize it and realize that no matter what, we're not alone. We're never alone.
The thing I've learned is that I can turn to my faith during tough times, especially when I feel alone or feel like the things I used to be able to rely on aren't as steady anymore. Throughout the past 4 or 5 or 6 years, the church has stayed a constant in my life. I've always found a safe place there. And even when I'm not at the church, I still try to keep in touch with my faith and keep the things I do there consistent with what I do out in the world. But mostly it's the people. And being back in the communities, I've missed so much during COVID. Being close to people, hugging, seeing people smile and laugh, realizing that I'm smiling and laughing, we spent a lot of time not doing that. It's the most beautiful thing a person can do, and it brings so much hope and healing.
A lot of times, finding a common interest or purpose helps build close relationships. I find joy in the sports that I play. Working together on a team has brought so many close friendships, and a sense of concentrated passion, it's amazing. One of the greatest things about being on a team, though, is that I can rely on my friends, and I'm proud of them and they're proud of me. And I think one of the greatest things as well is that I'm extremely, extremely grateful to have a loving and supporting family that I know won't abandon or judge or betray me.
I think one of the things we learn in life is there's no cure for a bad relationship better than a good relationship. That doesn't mean that the hurt or the betrayal goes away, especially when trust has been betrayed and abuse has happened. But finding good and right and trusting relationships can help heal a lot of what was broken from my past experience. And of course, finding forgiveness. However that can happen. Holding on to resentment or bitterness or shame only keeps us stuck in the struggle. Jesus talks quite a bit about forgiveness. It's a part of the prayer that we say all the time and a point of a lot of the parables he's told. In the parable of the prodigal son, the father in the story unconditionally forgives the son who ran away. In the prodigal of the unforgiving servant, Jesus shows us that God is just and forgiving and that we're expected to follow in that example. Jesus is clear we all need forgiveness and we all need to offer forgiveness. That doesn't mean accepting bad behavior, but it does mean not seeking retribution or revenge. It's one of the central tenets of living in a community with one another.
And the earliest community of believers were clear that we were all called to care for each other. In the second chapter of Acts, well, Michael, can I just have the Bible? Thank you. In the second chapter of Acts, the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teachings, to the community, to their shared meals, and to their prayers. A sense of awe came over everyone. God performed many wonders and signs through the apostles. All the believers were united and shared everything. They would sell pieces of property and possessions and distribute the proceeds to everyone who needed them. Every day, they met together in the temple and ate in their homes. They shared food with gladness and simplicity, and they praised God and demonstrated God's goodness to everyone. The Lord added daily to the community.
Was life really that much better back in Bible days? It sounds like everyone got along. They just ate and sang and prayed. What happened when they disagreed or someone felt betrayed? Did no one ever lose their cool, go off on a tirade?
I'm sure between the lines there was lots of stormy weather. We know they fought from time to time about who God loves better. It's human nature after all, we hurt our friends. However, I think the point is to help us see that life is better together.
Together, that's the secret, that's the key. Better together, it is not a mystery. We need each other plain and true, we just can't do it alone. You need me and I need you, the fact is widely known. Because we're better together, it's the truth that sets us free. Betray the trust we show. It leaves us feeling hurt and lost. We feel so all alone. But the truth be told, we've done the same at one time or another. So let's forgive and make amends and let our wounds recover. Because we're better together. That's the secret, that's the key. Better together. It is not a mystery. We need each other plain and true. We just can't do it alone. You need me and I need you. The fact is widely known. Because we're better together. It's the truth that sets us free. They say a cord with triple strands is difficult to break. So adding strands by adding friends, a stronger cord will make. The cord that binds us each to each, the love that makes us whole. sets us free. Better together, we're better together, we're better together, we're better together at last, because we're better together. That's the secret, that's the key. Better together, it is not a mystery. Better together, that's the secret, that's the key. Better together, it is not a mystery. Better together, it's the truth that sets us free.
Alrighty, I unfortunately have some bad news for you guys tonight. One of our friends, Adam, wasn't able to make it, but I was able to call with him earlier, and I was able to write his story down in my book of stories. So I'm going to read it out to you. This is from Adam. I kind of have a little bit of everything. I was born with a hole in my heart, but in a way that was kind of a cool thing, especially since it healed on its own. Later, I had seizures and was put on medication. In 3rd grade, I had to have surgery, and I'm still scared that I might have to have surgery again sometimes. It's caused me a lot of pain. I also feel like I can never just let my guard down because I don't know what's going to happen next. It's not just dealing with the physical things that happen. It's even harder just worrying about what's going to happen next. I don't know. It all stresses me out a lot. All the worry and the struggle, it's just so much.
Well, I'm kind of in a similar place in terms of disabilities. When I was a kid, I was on the spectrum. Well, I still am, but it just got less noticeable. Didn't affect my academics. Actually, it helped it. Making friends, socializing, that was hard. It also made me feel just a little less than. You hear a lot of talk these days about people being on the spectrum, and I guess it's good that awareness is being raised, but it often makes people like me feel like just an arbitrary thing, a point on some graph, something a little less than human. But I'm not a condition, or a label, or a point on a spectrum. I'm a real, complete, and whole person.
Well, in grade school, I was diagnosed with ADD. It was hard to focus and took me a long time to complete things. The simplest things would take forever to do. Turns out I also have dyslexia. I really struggled through school. I was different from most people. I never got reading. I was way below reading level and had trouble understanding. Made me feel worse than everybody else. I didn't like talking about it, so I never asked for help. I guess mostly what I've struggled with is myself and feeling like I'm not good enough. Eventually, my dyslexia morphed into something called dysgraphia, which basically means I'm really bad at writing. But the more names and labels they came up with for what I was dealing with, the worse I felt.
Huh. Dyslexia and dysgraphia, and I have dyscalculia. That's the holy trinity of disses. I can hold sequences of numbers in my brain, like phone numbers or birthdays. Like you, it makes me feel different, or not as good as, or othered.
Dyslexia, noun. A general term for disorders that involve a difficulty in learning to read or interpret words, letters, and other symbols, but do not affect general intelligence.
Dysgraphia, noun. Impairment of handwriting ability that is characterized chiefly by very poor or often illegible writing, or writing that takes an unusually long time and great effort to complete.
Dyscalculia, noun. A learning difficulty that affects an individual's ability to do basic arithmetic, such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Adults with dyscalculia often take longer when working with numbers.
Dyslexia and dysgraphia and dyscalculia, that's a partial list of all the labels differently able folks like us are dismissed. dysfunctions that describe us. They're one small part of all that makes us who we are. There's so much more to being human than this, that, or the other. The diss is one song in the human repertoire. We aren't the label that's a disconnection from the human wholeness that makes each of us. The diss is we all couldn't help understanding we'd be dissatisfied with anything else.
I thought there must be something very wrong with me. I worked so hard, but it was really tough. So finally, when I learned there was a name for this, I knew that who I am is more than enough.
Dyslexia and dysgraphia and dyscalculia, that's a partial list of all the labels differently able folks like us are dismissed with a diss. Sometimes it's disconcerting, the dysfunctions that describe us. They're one small part of all that makes us who we are. There's so much more to being human than this, that, or the other. The diss is one song in the human repertoire. We are the label that's a disconnection from the human wholeness that makes each of us. The diss is we all couldn't help understanding we'd be dissatisfied with anything else.
I wonder why I never could make sense of things. My studies always put me in a jam. I learned this isn't something that should bring me shame. It's just a part of all that makes me who I am.
You can do it. Woo! Try again, try again. It's okay, it's okay. It's not your fault. It's okay, Abby.
Dyslexia and dysgraphia and dyscalculia, that's a partial list of all the labels differently able folks like us are dismissed with a diss. Sometimes it's disconcerting, the dysfunctions that describe us. They're one small part of all that makes us who we are. There's so much more to being human than this, that, or the other. The diss is one song in the human repertoire. We are the label that's a disconnection from the human wholeness that makes each of us. The diss is we all couldn't help understanding we'd be dissatisfied with anything else. The diss is we all couldn't help understanding we'd be dissatisfied with anything else.
I know others of you have already talked about this, but one of the greatest joys and most healing things in my life is singing. It's a way of communicating with people when I don't necessarily have the words myself. And it's not just the words, but the music behind it. When I sing, it's like a keyhole in my chest opens up, and the song is the key, and a little door swings wide open and fills me with a bright and warm light. And it no longer matters if I can express myself as well as other people. When I sing, it all makes sense.
Well, eventually, I made some good friends. I made some not so good friends too. But that's what happens in life. I'm grateful for the good friends and for being accepted for who I am. And it's good to feel like I can be who I am without being labeled or judged or pushed aside.
Healing happens in so many different ways. It was one of the central aspects of Jesus' work in ministry. He healed the sick, not just physically, but more importantly, he brought spiritual healing. He helped change our way of thinking, helping us to understand that the things that afflict us aren't our fault, aren't caused by sin, but are a part of life. He also helped us understand that a life of faith, an attitude of love, can help protect us from self-destructive behaviors, from hatred and isolation, from thinking that God rewards some and punishes others. Healing for Jesus was whole and holistic.
One of my favorite stories is the story of Jacob wrestling with God. It's not necessarily a literal story, more of a metaphor for our struggles with God. Charles Wesley wrote a ridiculously long hymn about it, and he viewed it as a metaphor for our misidentification of who and what God is. I think a lot of our idea of health and healing and wholeness involves wrestling with God, perhaps beginning with trying to make God conform to who we think we want or need God to be, but eventually realizing that God is in us and with us and working through us. And who and what and how God is love.
My vision wasn't clear. I couldn't tell that you had hold of me. I tried to cling so tight, and I wrestled through the night. Then with the dawn, my weary eyes could see who you are and what you are and how you are is love.
In a way, all of our stories have struggled, whether they're about relationships or fears and anxieties or anything else we have to deal with. They all include some kind of loss. Loss of trust, loss of stability, loss of security, loss of self-worth, and on and on. And a lot of times, it's loss itself that brings some of the greatest burdens: grief, emptiness, sadness. I know the three of you, and all of us really, have stories of loss to share.
Yeah, I guess I could start. A couple of years ago, my grandfather died. He was old and all, but it was pretty unexpected. This was the first time I had really experienced death. I was so sad. That was super hard. But through that experience, I learned that a lot of people, maybe most people, don't know how to talk about death. It was crazy seeing people react because they don't know how to react. My friends didn't say much, if anything. Even my family had a hard time talking about it. Then, a couple months ago, my grandma died. She was sick a long time, but it was still really hard. Death just seems so final. This time, though, I guess I was a little more prepared, and I decided I would talk about it. I think this helped other people realize that death isn't something to go unnoticed, but something that happens to all of us, and that we need each other to get through it.
My parents got divorced when I was a kid. I really didn't understand. For a while, I thought maybe it was my fault, but they both helped me see that it wasn't me. If it wasn't me, though, what was it? I thought they loved each other, and even though they would argue a lot, I never thought a day might come where we didn't all live together. Looking back, I think they really did try to make things as easy or normal for us kids as possible. But there is nothing easy or normal about it. I had 2 places to stay and split my week between their houses. 2 bedrooms, 2 breakfast tables. Nothing felt familiar or normal. I still had both my parents, and I still do, and I'm really grateful for that. But somehow, it felt like I didn't have all of them anymore. It still makes me sad.
All of us have lost friends or acquaintances. A few of us were friends with a boy who was killed by a truck while biking to school this past year. All of us have lost friends and classmates to suicide. This is the time in our lives when we shouldn't be losing friends without even getting to say goodbye. I think all of us are especially shaken up about gun violence. I feel like nowhere is safe anymore. Not going to the grocery store or walking down the street or even going to school. One of my friends lost her sister. She was pregnant and she was killed in a drive-by shooting. It just doesn't make any sense.
You're right. It doesn't make sense. And whether we've lost grandparents, parents, siblings, or friends, loss cuts deep and it brings tremendous pain. Sometimes it feels like a mountain that we can never get over.
The loss of you could see brings me pain. The loss of you could see and brings me pain. The loss of you could see and brings me out in the rain. When you're pouring and pouring and pouring upon me, and love is your name.
Oh, the pain becomes a river, and the river becomes an ocean, and the ocean holds the spirit that washes over me, and the spirit marks the memories, and the memories fill the heart space, and the heart space knows no limit, and the loss is made whole.
The loss of you could see brings me pain. The loss of you could see and brings me pain. The loss of you could see and brings me out in the rain. When you're pouring and pouring and pouring upon me, and love is your name.
You're the feast upon my table, and the open chair beside me, and the love that holds such goodness, and the winding heart I know. You're the words that I have written,
and the story that's been woven. You're the tears that know my sorrow, and forgiveness in my cup. Oh, how generous the doorway. Oh, that calls me to lean in. Oh, the things we gain from losing. Oh, they teach us to begin. Oh, how generous the doorway. Oh, that calls me to lean in. Oh, the things we gain from losing. Oh, they teach us to begin. The loss of Eucharisty brings me pain. The loss of Eucharisty and brings me pain. The loss of Eucharisty and brings me out in the rain. When you're pouring and pouring and pouring upon me, and love is your name. You're pouring and pouring and pouring upon me, and love is your name. You're pouring and pouring and pouring upon me, and love is your name.
One of the most powerful ways to keep the ones we've lost with us is through memory. Sometimes memory can be hard because remembering the person we lost reminds us that they're gone and we won't be able to spend any more time with them. But I actually think that memory is a way to continue to enjoy the good times. Every moment in life is fleeting. It's over before we even know it. The memory of that moment, though, keeps it alive and weaves it into our being so that it becomes a part of us. That is so much more true when it's the memory of someone who has been significant in our lives. I think remembering, nurturing, and celebrating those memories keeps them with us in a very real way.
What I've learned, and continue to learn, is to savor each moment. Kind of like what you were saying. Make the moments count so the memories will be strong and positive and meaningful. Things might not be like they used to be, and that's hard, and that's sad, but there are still moments to create, moments to savor, moments to embrace. I try to do that with whichever parent I'm with, or with friends who may have moved away, or with family members who live in a different state or country. Sure, there's an emptiness when I'm not with them, but that's a good time to rely on the memories and be grateful for the time spent together. That also leads me to create moments of connection and significance. They are still there, and they still make a huge difference.
I also think that finding hope requires us to take action. Sometimes hope depends on us breaking through the fear and despair and defeat so that hope can shine through again. It might seem like we're never going to be able to stop the epidemic of gun violence, but the kids who survived the Parkland shooting in Florida, they've created a movement called March for Our Lives, and they're speaking with passion and conviction and love, and they're not giving up, and they're inspiring others. This is something we all can do. All the feelings of hopelessness, not just about gun violence, but climate change and racism and heterosexism and religious intolerance and white supremacy and on and on and on. But for every one of those seemingly insurmountable issues, there are voices speaking up, taking action, leading others to action. They don't seem to think it's hopeless, and if they don't, neither do I.
I think that's what Jesus was talking about when he told us to be salty, to let our light shine, working for justice, to right the wrongs, to speak up for the least, the lost, and the lonely is exactly what he was talking about. I have another Bible quote in mind. Thank you, Michael. Here we are. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how will it become salty again? It's good for nothing except to be thrown away and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city on top of a hill can't be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a basket. Instead, they put it on top of a lampstand, and it shines on all who are in the house. In that same way, let your light shine before people, so they can see the good things you do and praise God who is in heaven. Jesus didn't whisper this or say it to only his closest followers. He proclaimed it to everyone who had gathered to hear his Sermon on the Mount. We remember, we create moments, we make hope happen. These are all the ways of being salty, of letting our light shine. Oh, a city on a hill can't be hidden, 'cause your lamp will share its light for all to see. And the heavens, they will open up and shout to all the world, crying, oh, you are enough.
Oh, I am enough as light to the world. Just as I am, just as I'm a child of God. Oh, I am enough as light to the world. Just as I am, just as I'm a child of God.
You can turn my Sunday morning into dancing. You can mold your grief and struggle into joy. You can gather up the memories and cast aside your pain, crying, oh, you are enough.
Oh, I am enough as light to the world. Just as I am, just as I'm a child of God. Oh, I am enough as light to the world. Just as I am, just as I'm a child of God. We will remember you are enough. Savor the goodness, you are enough. Stand with the lonely, you are enough. Break through our fears, you are enough. Transform with courage, you are enough. Speak with compassion, you are enough. Proclaim the message, you are enough. Light of the world, oh, I am enough as light to the world. Just as I am, just as I'm a child of God. Oh, I am enough as light to the world. Just as I am, just as I'm a child of God. Just as I am, just as I'm a child of God. Just as I am, just as I'm a child of God.
What we've shared here is life. We could go on and on telling our stories, talking about the losses that we've suffered, the times we felt pain, and the places that we found community. The light of dawn that shines through the darkness, all the more brilliant for the contrast.
I'm sure if we kept going, each story would spark 10 more, and not just with us, but with all of you.
Hopefully, this has simply been a stopping place along the journey, a place to pause and be together and share together and watch the beautiful tapestry that emerges as the strands of our stories weave together. You're right, Tyler. For every time we trust enough to share a part of ourselves with one another, more and more stories are sparked. More and more strands are woven together. The more we see God's light and creativity at work. The beautiful poetry of Psalm 139 sings to God, "You're the one who created our innermost parts. You knit me together. Your works are wonderful. I know that very well. We are fearfully and wonderfully made." That knitting together that the psalmist writes about certainly includes the struggles and the triumphs and the loss and the fears of all of our lives. God is the creator, is with us through it all, and is the one who weaves us all together.
Weave it all together. The stories of our lives encounter other lives and stories, and together weave into a wonder sacred to behold. Each story is a strand unique and wondrous on its own, and when it weaves into another, miracles unfold. Weave, 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 weave it all together. Weave, 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 weave throughout whatever. Weave, 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 it's now or never. Weave, 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 weave. Each one of us packs many strands held in our deepest places. We long for sanctuary where it's safe for us to share. The more we trust, the more we weave, the more we weave, we see how beautiful this world can be when we listen and we care. Each day we bring more strands to weave together. Each day our tapestry has more delight. Each moment of each life is sacred beauty. Each strand we weave has beauty, depth, and light. Weave, 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 weave it all together. Weave, 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 weave throughout whatever. Weave, 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 it's now or never. Weave, 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 weave.
You may be seated. We are really grateful that you joined us tonight and to listen to our stories. And perhaps these singers felt comfortable sharing their stories because they've grown up with stories. Bedtime stories at home, circled stories at school, and Bible stories at church. And they know the importance of these stories. Stories, they bring things that speak the truth into our lives. And at the beginning of the musical, Michael said these words: "In a world and a time that is so focused on what separates us, our time here tonight is about what connects us. The stories, the struggles, the hopes of all of it Every person we encounter, every single one, carries so many of the strands of so many stories. Mostly, we'll never really know how they weave together. But we believe that the more we know, the better our chances for finding connection and understanding. And it is my prayer tonight that we begin to focus on these things, the threads that create the strongest weave, the ones of inclusion and listening and accepting and loving and expanding ourselves to be more in a world that so often tries to minimize this. These are the threads that have the potential to connect us and create the most dazzling tapestry we've ever seen. My hunch is we can do this, one story at a time. I would like very much to invite J.P. Wilson up, and he is with a program that he will share with you about. And this is what we're taking our offering tonight for. When we tour, we like to have the opportunity for each church community to choose where they would like the offering to go so it reaches into your own community. So JP, wherever you are, love for you to come up now and share. JP's coming. There you are.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for a delightful performance. Storytelling is one of the things that we use as an organization when we bring a new chapter president on. That's how do I tell people kids don't have beds? And what we do tell them, we tell them to tell the story. And it's so simple. Tell the story even in our own community where we delivered a bed to a mother, domestic violence, escaping a domestic violence situation, and her 11-year-old child, we gave them the first bed he ever had. It's hard to fathom. But our organization, if you're not familiar with us, it's called Sleep in Heavenly Peace. It was formed in, Christmas time in 2012 by a gentleman named Luke Mickelson in Twin Falls, Idaho. To this day, we have 260 chapters across the U.S. and in Canada, Bermuda, and the Bahamas. We've delivered over 93,000 beds to kids. In our community alone, we started in 2018. We delivered our first bed to a young family in Winston, and recently we delivered our 901st. So it's pretty incredible. We like to pride ourselves. We say we're the largest bed building charity in the world. I think we are. We'll leave it at that. But we do two things really well. We build beds. We do a great job of building beds. If anybody here has ever built with us, you've seen the chaos that ensues. But the other thing that we do really well, and I think we're almost as good at that, is we build community. Because we don't build the beds. I will admit when I first found it and said, wow, I can do that. I've got a barn. I can build beds in my barn. About 5 minutes at training, I found out that wasn't quite the model. So we didn't want a bunch of middle-aged guys in their pajamas in their barns. That's kind of a frightening thought, if you think about it. So it's a wonderful mission. My wife and I've made the best friends that we've probably ever had. I didn't realize that we were short friends, but we've got some of the best friends that we have. This community is amazing. I think practically every quilter in Douglas County quilts for us, and we're very proud of them. And that's a talent that I don't have. I know more about quilting now and long arms and all the other stuff that I never thought I would know. But I want to thank all the community support that we've had. We call the problem child bedlessness. It's not really a word, but it is a problem. And our mission is to wipe it out, and we're not there yet. So thank you very much for inviting us. Thank you guys for a nice show, and keep telling your stories. Thank you.
I'd just like to say that I know I take for granted the bed that I have. I'm reminded it, and we all are reminded of it a little bit as we sleep on church floors night after night. But we still have a bed to go home to. So if you would do what you can to make impact with and make a difference in your community, to give some people a place to sleep, and we'd be so grateful. If there is anyone here who is a former Starfire singer, we always invite our alumni to come sing with us. So we will sing our last song while we take this offering.
me, just one thing. There's a famous phrase that comes to my mind: to assume makes an ass of you and me. So please do not do that, ever.
So I just wanted to answer your question about success. We're all here in the church, and something that I've learned is there's a Christian philosopher, Christian theologian, Irenaeus, who said, I don't know if this is on. The glory of God is the human being fully alive, and if like each of us finding the ways to like express ourselves in the ways that make us feel most like ourselves isn't giving glory to God, I don't know what is. So I think like that speaks to your question about success, especially in this context of a church where we want to give glory to God.
You know, I wasn't attempting to define success. I was just asking if the person felt that they would be successful being non-binary. That's all. No value judgment at all.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? That was great. That's, you know, it's good when what we're doing makes us begin to think and open up our thinking and share our thoughts. Well, thank you so much for coming tonight and thank you for coming tonight and being a part of this musical and this message. And we are grateful to have been here on our last tour that we will make. Thank you. Good night.